Hello there, thanks for joining me. So today, with it being the end of 2024 and obviously the first year I've had this YouTube channel and things like that, and taking the photography really to kind of the next level for me, and just getting more and more out there and trying to get as many different photographs and video that I've been able to get over this year and bring to you guys. Hopefully you've enjoyed the videos, but this video really is for trying to see if I can find my top photos for this year basically. So that might be a top 5 or a top 10. We'll see how the video goes. It'll probably be I imagine probably around about a top 10, with some possible honourable mentions maybe and stuff like that. So yeah, we'll see what photos we can dig out and what I think you'll enjoy. But really this is actually what I think are my best photos of this year. So those of you who've followed the channel will probably recognise most of these photos. There might be a couple that actually didn't turn up on the channel, that were just were not shot while taking a video basically for YouTube. So but most of them, because as and when I get out I do video pretty much only then, because I've got very limited time. So I don't know when I'm going to be able to get the footage sometimes. So every time I'm out with the camera I bring you guys with me most of the time. So yeah, let's get stuck into the video and see what my best photos of 2024 look like. There should be a good mix of species hopefully. So yeah, hopefully we can round off the year with a good selection. So yeah, let's get into it. Well, that should be pretty good. Oh, cracking. Hear the woodpecker. Great spotters are starting to drum now, which generally means they're looking for communicating with mates, potential mates, and they're just going to be more social over the next couple of months until they find that breeding partner and a possible nest site as well. So one thing I do want to say before we get this video kind of kicked off is a massive thank you to all the people in the first year of me doing this channel, all the people that have watched the videos, whether you've watched every single one or whether you've just watched one of my videos. It means a great deal, because it's a lot of effort putting these videos together, and it's a lot of time it takes, especially when you're limited to weekends anyway. So yeah, it's I appreciate people going online and watching these videos, and especially if you've liked and commented on the videos. We do have some people that do regularly comment, so like Nikon Norm springs to mind and people like that. So thank you for anyone who's had any interaction with the channel, because it really does helps me want to bring more to you and continue this channel. And it is growing. It's quite slow, but it is getting there. We're nearly up to 500 subscribers, and hopefully once we get to that 1,000 mark, hopefully in the next, I would like to think within the year, it'll progress a little bit quicker and things like that, and we can share wildlife stories and just images. And because not everyone who watches this channel is a photography geek, they are just birders as well. So hopefully I get a good mixture of content for both sets of people. But yeah, thank you for supporting the channel. So yeah, we'll get into the pics. Hear the woodpecker still in the background. It's following me, I think. So the first pic to start this video. Now what's it going to be? So one of my favourite experiences this year has to be Skomer Island, and obviously the main attraction to Skomer Island is obviously all the seabirds on there, but one particular seabird is the puffin. Now puffins, everybody loves puffins, and every time you go to a place like Skomer, there's that many birds and that many opportunities because of the way the puffins are. They're a tame bird, and they don't really mind. They don't find you very threatening, and it just allows you to get close to them and get the photography is kind of easy in a way, but there are moments that are quite difficult to get. And this image is kind of kind of strange really, because this bird, this puffin, had a catch in his mouth, and no real way to tell female and male on puffins. There's certain things with the bill that you can see that might give away male or female, but generally it's quite difficult. But this particular bird had a catch in its mouth, and it was kind of sitting on the edge of the cliff showing off its catch, and just the way the leg position was, almost stepping forward as if to say, look at my catch kind of thing, with a bunch of sardines in its mouth rather than sand eels, so they were quite a big catch. And yeah, absolutely amazing kind of bokeh in the background with nice yellow lichen on the cliffs in the background, and quite dark cliffs as well, so like a black stone with yellow lichen, giving a nice kind of colourful background really. So yeah, a great image, and there was an absolute bucket load of images, to be honest, on the day, and I'll probably chuck a couple more on and a bit of video, just because who doesn't want to see more puffin action. So yeah, it was a interesting video to do, because it was in the middle of July and it was pouring down of rain all day, very misty, but gave a good atmosphere for all the photos that I did manage to get, to be honest, compared to just a nice easy day, just being all sunny and, you know, good light. But yeah, the photos kind of turned out well, considering really, and gave it a bit of drama in the images. So yeah, that's going to kick our video off, and yeah, what a day on Skomer Island, and I'll be going again this year for sure in 2025. So one of the photos that's crept into this list also is the one that I took on the channel quite a few months ago now in the spring, from Middleton Lakes actually. Great reserve, RSPB reserve in like the Birmingham area, and a lot of you might remember who watched that video. There was a grasshopper warbler there, not too far from the car park, and this picture for me is quite interesting because it's not the typical kind of vegetation that you would see a grasshopper warbler in. Normally they're in that kind of the rushy type scrubby areas, really low down on the ground, and they'll go to the odd tree, hawthorn within those areas or whatever, and they'll sing from those branches and brambles and things like that. Whereas this one was like in kind of a woodland area at the time, and yeah, it was just a lot different to all the other photos that I got on that day, and it was just the way the bird was sideways on, lovely and parallel to the camera, giving that full focus across the whole side of the bird, and it also was kind of looking at me while actually being parallel as well. So a really interesting bird as well. Obviously great call, typical grasshopper like call, and yeah, it was a great day as well, so it invokes a lot of memories as well, like a lot of these photos are going to do. So yeah, that one up there, that one for me is right up there, purely because as well the colours in the background and the bokeh and things like that, it just looks pleasing, and yeah, a great memory. So another pick for me would be more so for the experience and how much of a great kind of reserve it is as well, but really it's because of the bird that it is, and it's my probably out and out favourite bird, and it's the bearded reedling. Now I've got a selection of images because of the time of year that I went. Obviously it wasn't that long ago I did the video, and I've always wanted to go to Leighton Moss or anywhere where there is the bearded reedlings. I think Blacktoft Sands is another one, but there's multiple places you can go in the UK to find bearded reedlings, and obviously in November they go onto the grit trays, and it's just chaos, and they kind of come in flurries, and they put on a good show for the people who've come to watch and take photographs. So yeah, out of the images that I've picked, I've selected this one because everyone goes for the Van Damme kind of pose as their favourite, but I don't think it's too common of a photo, so I've kind of picked a couple of different ones where you can see maybe some different poses and whatnot, and even the females are absolutely stunning birds as well, because everyone gives the males all the credit, but really females are just as striking in my opinion. Now this one for me was always going to be really high on the list, and I haven't really scored particularly in any kind of order or which one's better than any others, because to be honest they're all pretty equal for me. They've all got different memories and things like that, but this one is quite a unique one because you don't often get very lucky with out of the blue moments with birds of prey, because they're typically really finicky and they're not a bird that'll come to you because they are so aware of their surroundings, mainly because their eyesight is so good, so they can see you an absolute mile off, often even when you're in hides and things like that. But on this occasion I wasn't in a hide, and it was on a YouTube video again, and it was when I had a little trip to, I think it was Stafford direction, so a little bit north of me, and basically what happened was it was a sparrowhawk, and it was a female, a young female I believe, looking at the plumage. It was a very scruffy one, so it's quite hard to tell, and I ended up getting a great image from it, a few great images actually, from a side profile where it wasn't really aware of me to a few seconds later where it was looking me dead through the lens. And luckily it was one of those occasions where I was actually prepared for it, and I actually already had the lens on the bird, on its face, in focus, amongst a load of branches. Really difficult to find that gap sometimes, especially in the summer when you got all that foliage. And yeah, it saw me, and within half a second I took 2 or 3 photos and luckily got them all sharp. And yeah, it ended up being a great image with that intense bird of prey stare that you can only get with birds of prey. And yeah, the feeling you get after those kind of photos are absolutely fantastic, because it's an intense stare, and they make you so aware that you're looking at them. And then it just fled off on the hunt again, as they often do. So the next image that you're going to see that is in my kind of top 10 of last year is this image that you haven't actually seen because it wasn't featured on the channel. Now I did do some videos at the time, and I kind of wish I'd put them out there, but there wasn't really enough. There was a story behind it, and maybe next year when I try for the foxes again, we might build on this story, and we might actually use some of the footage that I got this year. But I'll show you some of the images that I managed to get. Well, the one image really, because there was pretty much only one image that I managed to get. But I did have a few encounters. That was the annoying thing. I had quite a few encounters with this young red fox that I feel like I knew where the den kind of was, and over the winter I'll be looking for where that den was. But this image really, to me, is kind of a little taster of what I want to go for next year and what I want to improve on and build on it. But it was a good starting point, and it's got some nice foreground foliage in the way of the image, but then the image is actually sharp itself, and it's got like a nice bit of colour going through it a little bit, with ironically a foxglove going through it. And it was just, I was so close to this young fox cub and managed to stay still enough to not disturb the fox, which is very important to me as well. And it was in focus, and he's just minding his own business, as young foxes do, not really paying attention, but they can always still hear you. And I was just really quite pleased just to have the moment, because I've not really had a moment like that with a young fox, or any foxes to be honest. So yeah, it came out alright really, and it's a little bit high. You'd like it to be same level as the fox or your subject typically, but for me it was a good starting point, and something to build on next year. So I'll be looking for that den this year. And yeah, while it's winter and while there's no leaves on the trees, you can get to certain areas. It's a good time to look for dens and badger sets and things like that, and then you can kind of scope them out in the spring from a distance. So yeah, nice little image. So yeah, and probably the only mammal, maybe not, we'll see, maybe the only mammal that'll end up in the best photos of 2024 for me. So I'm losing the light a little bit, but I'm losing a bit of light, but we'll go on to the next pic nonetheless. And it's this pic's a fantastic little bird really. It's a summer migrant, so it heads south come September, October time. And yeah, it's the Redstart, and what a bird it is, especially when you get those males in full colour. And they've got a lovely song to them as well, where they've got a kind of really pleasant song that you can kind of pick out a little bit. I'll probably play a little bit for you now so you can hear it. But again, this was featured on the video on the YouTube channel in the summer, so you'll probably have seen a bit of Redstart footage. Took me a couple of attempts to find a dependent Redstart location where they would actually be within good distance, and they do like that kind of they like insects, they love insects, that's their main diet, a lot like flycatchers, so you'll find them in a bit of a crossover kind of environment, particularly by streams, and obviously there's a lot of streams and waterways at the chase, and this was where I managed to photograph some of the Redstart. So yeah, got bags of photos. It was difficult to kind of pick my favourite, but I like this one just because it's sitting nicely on the branch, it's nice and crisp. It's got a nice consistent background, really blurred because it's so far away, so really good bokeh, and the bird is just nice and crisp, singing away with that contrasting yellow throat. Well, say yellow throat as in inside the mouth it's yellow with a black kind of bill and face and things like that. So it's a really cool kind of image for me, and that image just reminds me of how kind of close I was to the bird at the time, and hearing that lovely song that they've got. But yeah, so I would say the Redstart, one of my favourite summer migrants, one of my favourite birds all round. You don't see many of them, unfortunately, but yeah, cracking British bird. So while I've been down my wildlife area, I've just been watching the nice little kind of sunset actually, and sometimes we get foxes coming along this area as well. Let's see if I can just show you where we are, just in a nice little kind of meadow area. There is a road just at the back there, but it doesn't really interfere with the wildlife coming onto this area, to be honest. So yeah, it's just a nice little area to sit, and that leads us on to the next pick really. So great crested grebe. So normally it's quite a common bird that you see and can be easy to photograph, can be very difficult to photograph, and I would like to get some kind of different photos in the spring because I've never been able to kind of catch the courtship displays, which would be really nice to do. But these photos, and there's a few photos, but they're very similar to each other, so I'll probably stick my favourite on, and it's of a great crested grebe that literally it was in low light, and it was actually really well, and this was on the Z6ii before I had the Z8, so it did really well in these low light conditions, and obviously with the 200 to 500 lens, and I managed to catch it just as it popped up out the water, and it didn't startle it because I was already there and I didn't move, and the camera was already pointing at roughly where I could see bubbles along the water, and just the background was really pleasing for me, and the lighting was enough to and the ISO wasn't too high. I can't think about what the ISO was. I think it might have been like 5,000. I'll check and stick it on the screen. But yeah, so it was a great image for me in low light, 5,000 ISO, and it still did a really good job. And the shutter speed, it was 5,000. The ISO was quite high because I had to get the shutter speed reasonably high, because obviously the bird's going to pop up out of the water, so there's going to be water movement, and the bird's going to be moving. It might have a fish and things like that. So yeah, a really kind of pleasing image, a side kind of profile again, but also an image that you can put the bird in the centre. For me, that's the way I decided to compose the image, and that was the way I took the image as well. And it was just a nice bokeh, level of bokeh as well. And don't get me wrong, you could probably edit more of that in, but I just liked the reeds in the background and the shape of everything. It just looks really nice. So hopefully you guys agree. There's a few different shades of images that I got, and it was a really nice one to edit actually, because there was you could really pull the true colours out of it, because sometimes you don't quite get that look of how it looks to you when in the actual moment, but on this one it really did. And sometimes it can be really hard work to edit a photo, even though it's a good quality photo. It can be sometimes they just don't edit well, and this one just did. So even with the high, there was a little bit of noise, but not enough to spoil the photo. Because if you can get close enough to a bird or a subject, and get it sharp enough, because you're close enough, you'll get enough detail that the noise isn't an issue. And it also depends on whether it's really dark or if it's really light, because a pale image can, sometimes it can highlight noise, but then also dark images can highlight noise. It just, you want a bit of texture in there. I always find that if you've got texture and not just a block of colour, the noise is going to be kind of, you're not going to see it very well, which is a good thing, obviously. So yeah, this image is up there for me for this year, and it's quite a nice one for, that's my top great crested grebe kind of image really, and it's a nice photo. So we'll move on to the next one because the sun's gone down, and we'll probably head off onto the feeding station. So I'm just down my local feeding station in my wildlife area, just feeding the area, basically keep the birds coming and keep them interested basically, and keep that food source, especially while it's really cold. It's been -3, -5 the last 2 nights, so the birds will, you hear a great spot in the background there calling. It's almost like they see me here and they know it means food, so that's a kind of good sign. And obviously they're desperate, so yeah, it's good. It has stopped freezing here now, so it is actually quite good for foraging for them. It's not all frozen leaves and things like that they can't access, so yeah, not too bad. We'll get on with the next pick. To pick basically is another one that's not really featured on the channel at all, so it was taken up a popular place that I go to on the channel, which is, it's up the chase, and it kind of on the edge of the chase really as you're approaching, and it was in some horse fields, and it was of another bird of prey, actually a buzzard. And buzzards have been really tricky for me to photograph this year, well last year, and probably will be this year, because they typically are a species that are so finicky to get close to, especially with the camera. You can kind of pull up to lay-bys where you see big buzzards sitting on posts, and you think, oh, I'm going to do this really slow. There's cars whizzing past, and they're not going to notice my car slowing down. And it's almost like as soon as they see the brake lights, they're gone. So let alone get the window down and get the lens out. So very difficult bird to photograph. That's why I appreciate this kind of photo actually. And obviously I've only recently just got this because obviously it's we've gone through autumn now into winter, so it's got some nice autumnal colour on it, and it's, to be honest, it's not great quality. It's not one to crop in and things like that, but the scene itself is one that deserves not to be cropped in because of the colours going on. And you'll see from the image it's got so much shades, so many shades of autumnal colour going on, that it would be a shame to crop it down. And the bird is quite a big bird, and it was sharp enough to have uncropped, and it was framed well enough to be uncropped. So it was at 3,200 ISO I believe, and 250 on the shutter speed, so it was quite a I probably could have gone lower on the shutter speed really because it's static, but you know what it's like, you're in a panic, you're trying to get a buzzard before it goes off. But in this occasion it was just really kind of chilled. It didn't really budge. Went on a couple of perches, probably stick in a couple of other images that I got along with it. I can't really decide which one's the best out of them, but I'm sure there's one that is better than the other. So yeah, this buzzard image was quite pleasing, and it would be nice for like a autumnal side of a calendar maybe. So yeah, that's in the top few photos for me. So yeah, we'll go on to the next one. So this pick is the common sandpiper. Now, this was a bird I've not photographed before, and to be honest, I've not seen a lot of them, and I always forget how small they are. They're like the size of almost like a jacksnipe. If you've not that you've probably seen, if you haven't seen a common sandpiper, you probably haven't seen a jacksnipe, because I do bird ringing and have done for the last probably 8 months. We ring jacksnipe, and they're just really tiny in the hands. So yeah, fantastic bird though, the common sandpiper, and we managed to get some on the channel. A really short video in the late summer in Salcombe down south in Devon, and yeah, absolutely fantastic little bird. So quick, you've got to have a decent shutter speed, and I think the main thing I remember about these images is not just the clarity of them that I was managed to get, and that was luckily due to the good light that we had, but it was really the method of use of trying to get the image, and it was all because I'd somehow plucked up the courage to risk bringing my camera on the kayak that we'd bought down for the holiday, and thought, you know what, let's just take the camera, stick it on the kayak. I've seen some waders, let's see what we can get, and the common sandpiper managed to show itself quite well, and it was quite confident really. And when you're on the water like that, I think I mentioned it on the video, when you're on the water like that, the waders are used to the boats, so they weren't really bothered, so it allowed me to get closer to the birds and not panic them out. So yeah, these images were quite crisp images. You can see that iridescence, and that you can really see the feather detail, and just a nice surprise to photograph something really close up that is a really small bird and hard to get that detail on. So as our 10th and final kind of pick for the video, I did say that we weren't going to have any more mammals probably, but I forgot about the red deer really, and how could I forget, because there was a video in the summer that I did with some red deer stags, and I actually did a video a bit later on in the late summer as well, when they were just before they were getting into the rutting mode, and the antlers had gone out of velvet, and just when the antlers go out of velvet, they look, for me, they look a little bit more menacing and a little bit more detailed and better for the images. So this image for me, I've got loads of images on the day, but this image for me is one of my favourites. It's a very kind of, you know, what's the word? I just like the stance and the positioning of the stag, and the antlers had just grown to that kind of full size alpha male kind of size, which was really nice to see. And yeah, managed to get really close, which is probably a bit risky at that time of year, just before rutting, but yeah, nonetheless had a great experience videoing and photographing these stags. So yeah, that's the reason why this is in the top 10. I couldn't really leave it out just because of the experience alone really, but yeah, 3 majestic stags. Right, so I hope you've enjoyed this video on just going through some of the 2024 picks for me, and one of my favourite images of 2024 anyway. And obviously 2025 brings a load of new challenges. I'll probably be trying to target slightly different species that I didn't manage to get this year, because I think when you go through your photos sometimes you notice what's missing in a way, and it's only when you look at it as a collective year that you think, oh, I've got no, I don't know, yellow hammers or things like that, species that you want to go for. And not that I didn't target them, but just that you just can't get the image sometimes, and sometimes you just got to put that little bit more time into it. So I'm going to write a bit of a list and just see what I want to go for really. So yeah, hopefully I can get a mountain hare on it this year as well, after that palaver I had last year. So yeah, we'll see what 2025 holds. Hopefully you've enjoyed the video. Like I say, please leave a comment, go over to my Instagram as well, as I am posting on there now as well, Lewis Round Photography. So yeah, there might be some photos on there that you haven't seen before, and obviously some of the ones that I've mentioned today will be featured on there as well. So yeah, thank you for watching, and hopefully you've all had a great 2024, great Christmas break and New Year, and yeah, on to 2025. Thank you for watching.